A trial filled with mystery, media chaos, and accusations of a cover-up, and then boom, the verdict that shocks the world.
Defendants are guilty or not guilty? Not guilty.
They turned that into murder too, that she had intent, that she wanted this guy dead. That's just a tough hill to climb. She was extremely open with her supporters.
I think she's going for the limelight, but obviously they do like her.
Most people are frightened to say anything against the prosecution. She didn't care, neither did her lawyers. The defense has always said was, this is a cover-up. The cops did this.
This thing wasn't a secret. Everybody saw the investigative techniques around the world. Maybe we screwed this up a little bit.
The most expensive DUI conviction in the history.
Because that's all they got at the end was the DUI. That's it.
I thought we were going probably in the way of a mistrial, and then we got the verdict.
A Boston woman accused of killing her cop boyfriend. A trial filled with mystery, media chaos, and accusations of a cover-up, and then boom, the verdict that shocks the world. Was Karen Read the villain or the victim? We go inside the courtroom today and talk to a man who covered this story, both trials, from beginning to end. Welcome, everybody. You are watching Tom Zenner Scandal. Our channel here is on fire right now because partly, mostly, a lot to do with that man right there, Kato Kaelin, who was involved in the biggest crime trial ever, especially one that merged in pop culture and all the other elements that we just saw going on in Boston. But now we're talking about the next one that was almost as big.
Well, when the Karen Read trial is going on, I get phone calls from every network to form my opinion, which I didn't do any opinion because why form an opinion of what you're going to find out what the verdict is? The jury, someone likes them or not. And I saw all the people outside. It's kind of like the thing with OJ. It was like the free Karen Read, and they had the free OJ. And with a dozen donuts at Krispy Kreme. So you can get the free OJ at Krispy Kreme.
All right, cool.
Dozen donuts.
Got to get that little deal. No coupon needed.
But it was that. Remember that? They had, I have all these shirts that people would give me during the trial. The Cato's back for the civil trial. And there'll be a civil trial, obviously, with Karen Read has already been filed. But what a great guest we have today.
Yep. We're going to get right to the bottom of this, Kato. We're going to learn all about what went happen in Boston before, during, after the verdict, because this is just such a compelling true crime case that people are mesmerized. So let's bring him in. Boston 25 TV reporter, Ted Daniel. Ted, you were there, for both trials, and we really appreciate you jumping on with us right now. But what's the vibe in Boston? Yesterday the NBA Finals ended. Last year you were celebrating an NBA championship with the Boston Celtics. But this story, from afar, it looks like it really captivated the city. But you've been there. Was there a real buzz in the city as this trial was going on?
I appreciate you guys having me on. Yeah, no, I feel like I'm getting off an F-16 that's been going Mach 3. Been covering this case pretty much daily for the last 3 years, and it captivated Massachusetts. I mean, I could not go anywhere without someone asking me my opinion on the case, and people were absolutely glued to their streams or to their TVs for the verdict. It was sort of the verdict heard all over Massachusetts and all over the country, I think, due to the intense media spotlight on it.
And you just kind of asked yourself that question. People are asking you, what is your opinion? What is your opinion of this case?
Well, I think, I've seen pretty much every piece of evidence, read all the court filings. I, first of all, think they overcharged her. I think that's pretty much a universal agreement amongst most people. They charged her with murder too, and that didn't come until a few months after she was originally charged with a lesser charge. They took it up, it was in district court. They upcharged her in superior court, and that was kind of based on the voicemails that she left, or in part for John O'Keefe, where she was yelling at him, saying she hated him, and they turned that into murder too, that she had intent, that she wanted this guy dead. And I think that's just a tough hill to climb, and I think that was always something that even people in law enforcement would say, I don't see how you're ever going to get to murder too.
Yeah, they roll the dice, they go for the home run, and they end up striking out. If they'd gone maybe lower, who knows? But if you haven't followed this case, that closely. Obviously, you've heard of it, but let me just go through some of the details of what's involved here. Of course, Karen Reed, she was 45 years old. She's attractive. She's charismatic. I think that's part of the reason this thing took on a life of its own. She works in finance. She had a master's degree, smart young lady. She was dating a cop, a Boston cop, John O'Keefe. And this, the first trial started, three years ago in 2022. And then they had the second trial now. But Ted, let me ask you this. What was it about her, Karen Reed? Because with OJ, he's a global superstar, right? And I'm not trying to compare the two, though there are a few similarities, at least with the prosecution, with investigations that were going on with it. But what was it about her? Because no one knew her really before this, but she had this hold on people, and she had this fan club that was so supportive of her. And you've interviewed her one-on-one. You've been in the courtroom with her for almost 2 years here for these two trials. But what could you put your finger on about her that made her so captivating?
I think part of it is access, right? When do you have a murder defendant who's willing to do sit-down interviews while they're still going through the trial process? And, she spoke to me, she spoke to some of the networks, she would speak to us every day after court. She was extremely open with her supporters. And that's so rare to have somebody in the middle of the situation like that. 99% of defense attorneys are going to say, shut up, do not talk to the media, don't say anything. And they tried to use some of her own statements against her in court. And I think that's probably what led to the only thing she got acquitted on all her serious charges. The only thing they got her on was drunk driving. And that was sort of based on some of the statements that she made that were played in court, some of the media interviews she did. But I mean, if she told me that she was going to start a legal consulting business, I think I would invest in that legal consulting business. She's extremely smart, extremely analytical, and she played a huge role in a lot of the decisions that were made with her defense. She's the one who went out and found Alan Jackson. She kind of, this hotshot LA lawyer, she's the one who's like, I want this guy. And she managed to get him on the case. So she's just has a unique ability to sort of manage things under, intense pressure and sort of resonate with a lot of people in Massachusetts.
She had Alan Jackson, by the way. I don't know, he's the one that got the conviction of Phil Spector. So he's a hot shot guy here in LA. Here's what I totally was watching: Karen Reed and Alan Jackson. They had, I think it was the Netflix doc, and this is while the trial's going on, and I'm saying that's the biggest mistake ever, because people form opinions. I even formed an opinion saying, I think she's going for the limelight. I think if a juror or anyone sees, they're going to have an opinion like, I don't like this person. But obviously they do like her, and it worked to her advantage. But I can't believe the defense said, let's do a lot of PR in this thing, do all the interviews and that. I still don't understand why, she did, but like it worked in her favor, and I can't believe it.
It paid off though. She's made, part of that media campaign was also a fundraising campaign, and she's made $1 million in donations. If you don't do the media, you're not getting, the spotlight, and that money might not be there. I mean, she's essentially destitute right now based on, her legal bills. She sold her house, she drained her 401k, her dad mortgaged his house. So I think that was partly too, it helped fund this sort of dream team, defense team.
Yeah. Well, she's going to replenish those bank accounts because, there's going to be multiple opportunities for her. And of course, she's going to do a book. Ted, when you were sitting there, like the OJ trial, you had two horrible crime scenes, right? Where you saw the victim, the blood was everywhere. With this one, it's a little bit different. Did you feel like watching this, like they were overreaching? I mean, second degree murder when the taillight wasn't even, messed up that much. Were you thinking they're digging their own grave as far as the prosecution as you watch this, especially going for murder 2?
Yeah, I think that was an aggressive charge. And I think there was animus. I think they did not like Karen Reed. And second of all, this was a Boston cop who was killed, right? One of their their law enforcement brothers. So I think that might have played a role in the decision to charge her with murder too. And from the start, you could tell so there was a separate FBI investigation of this case. The feds were looking into allegations of corruption, and that revealed the lead investigator's personal text messages, Michael Proctor. And, his texts about Karen Reed he had to read them in court, and they were just awful. He absolutely hated her. And I think that kind of drove that prosecution. And then it becomes this even bigger battle. Well, she's not, most people are frightened to say anything against the prosecution or the DA. Like, they're like, they don't want the repercussions. She didn't care. Neither did her lawyers. They were more than willing to bash, the prosecution and law enforcement on this case. And it ended up being something that I think worked in her favor.
So when you said you were at the first trial and the second trial, you had seats in there and you watched the first trial and the second. So what was the vibe first trial compared to the second? And was the fan base, did it develop even bigger in the second trial? And what was your feel of being in the courtroom?
Yeah, no, I think there was tons of people outside the courthouse during the first trial to the point where, she was walking out in just like everybody else. And it got to the point where they're like, we can't do this anymore. She's getting mobbed by cameras. There were so many people who were surrounding her. So where they ended up having her go, instead of going out of the left side of the courthouse, she went out to the right, and there were SUVs waiting for her. I think more people nationally learned about it the second time around. But in terms of the amount of people outside the courthouse and her supporters, that they've been riding with her since very early on through the first trial. But I think more people heard about the case. The HBO Max documentary was huge. It really exposed it to a new audience. And so I think at least come verdict time for the second trial, and two, like the first trial was, you had no decision. It was a mistrial. And so I think people, it amps everyone up because it's more time away that you're waiting to try to figure out when we're going to get a resolution to this case. And then you finally got it in such a dramatic fashion.
Yeah. You get what you pay for if you're trying to defend yourself in court. Alan Jackson comes with a big price tag, but you get the results. Could you watch this on a day-to-day basis and see him outclass the prosecution? What was there a mismatch there when you compare the two legal teams?
Well, so initially for the first trial, they used a mainline prosecutor in the office, a guy named Adam Lally, who does motor vehicle homicide cases for that local DA's office. And, he is very much a prosecutor. There was no flash, no pizzazz, but that didn't work out great. So they ended up bringing in a defense attorney. So nobody in the office apparently wanted to try her the second time around. So they ended up bringing in a defense attorney, this guy, Hank Brennan, who had previously defended Whitey Bulger, a notorious Boston mobster. And they had him try the case. And he tried the case more like, he was the prosecutor, but he kind of tried it as a defense attorney. He's skilled. He is not a bad lawyer. But I think when you're dealing with this team of Alessi, Yannetti, Jackson, and Eliza Little, and they're investing, 18 hours a day on this case for 3 years, I think they had the upper hand.
Yeah, because Alan Jackson was quoted saying that even before the verdict, he said, "We've got this one." I mean, it's not so much being cocky, but he knew by reading the jury that they're gonna win this case.
It still is cocky. I mean, you're rolling the dice when you're making a comment like that because it's completely out of their hands. But I get what you're saying. He was so confident.
And the thing with John O'Keefe, I don't think anybody realizes this. And you correct me if I'm wrong. John O'Keefe he was raising a niece and a nephew from his brother and the wife died. And that was kind of how Karen Reed said this from a Facebook message, that this guy's raising these two kids out of love for his family. And now these two kids lost not just their parents, but John O'Keefe now. And I think that's a story in itself.
It's crazy what those kids have gone through. I think it just shows, I think everyone said that John O'Keefe was a super honorable man. The fact that he took his niece and nephew, who were weren't even teenagers yet, I think, at the time when he took them and was raising them, and that their parents, the niece and nephew's parents, had gone, had lost both of them. It's just for Mrs. O'Keefe, right, the mom, you got to think about all that she's been through,
Right.
and then the O'Keefe family firmly believes in Karen Reed's guilt, and they had to sit in that courtroom when not guilty, not guilty, not guilty.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no closure actually for them, I don't think.
Yeah. Hey, what really happened in that driveway? You sat through this for many, many, many hours. They go out drinking in the suburbs. They come back. Clearly something happened. Can you put it together as far as a mini timeline and just what exactly, how he died, how soon he died? Just fill in our viewers who maybe aren't following this as closely as a lot of people have.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever really know what exactly happened to John O'Keefe, but the prosecution's case was that Karen and John, it was a snowstorm, a blizzard in Boston area, and they went out to a couple of bars. They met up with a group of people at one of the bars and were invited back to their house. The house happens to be the home of another Boston cop named Brian Albert. So Karen says she drops off John, wasn't feeling it, wasn't feeling great, and leaves. The people inside the house, and there were like a dozen, there was a kid's birthday party or 21-year-old birthday party going on there too as well, said, hey, John never came in this house. He never stepped foot in the house. And Karen has said, no, he did. And that was the big argument. Did John ever go into the house? The defense theory was John went into the house and was immediately attacked and beaten up over the fact they alleged Karen had been texting one of the guys who ended up in this house, this ATF agent named Brian Higgins, and had been flirting with him. And the defense sort of floated the theory that Higgins got snubbed by Karen that night and he was pissed, so he attacked John. Like I said, there's evidence that I think could show that there was a collision. The fact that pieces of taillight were found in John's clothing. There was DNA from John on the Karen Reed's taillight. But what the defense has always said was this is a cover-up. The cops did this, that the cops actually there was also taillight evidence found at the scene. And their allegation was that, that taillight evidence was taken off her car after it had been seized and placed back at the crime scene. Because it was really strange the way they found the taillight. Like, they didn't find, I don't think initially, any taillight pieces the first couple of searches, but over the next month, this one cop, Michael Proctor, who had texted all those horrible things about Karen Reed, every week he'd be like, oh, got a new piece. And people are like, that doesn't, and he's saying, oh, well, the snow was melting and it was showing itself, but it was just also not a great investigation. And that's something the jurors who've come forward have said, that, one juror called it a sloppy investigation and said there were too many holes and there was just too much reasonable doubt.
Yeah, and the thing, Tom, also that it was not till morning they found his body, right? Because Karen Reed said she did CPR at like 4:50 a.m. If I'm
like 6, it would have been after 6, but around like 6:15. But yeah, that was another thing that the prosecution said. So Karen, calls a couple of people that were at the house the night before and says, hey, I can't find John. He hasn't come home. So they end up going, Karen and 2 other women, Jen McCabe, who is become famous from that, the question about the how long to die in cold Google search. They go out looking for John and they pull up at 34 Fairview. And according to Jen McCabe and another woman who was in the car with her, they say, Karen, nobody sees John's body, but Karen just jumps out of the car, goes, there he is, and does a beeline to the body.
I lived in Boston. I worked at the same TV station you work at now. But that was a long time ago when I was there, Ted. What's the reputation of the Boston police? Is a potential cover-up? Is that possible? How bad did they end up looking by the time this trial ended?
So it would be more the state police and the Canton Police Department, because this happened in the town of Canton, and it was the state. So essentially, the Canton police said after a certain point, we recused ourselves from the investigation because there were these conflicts of interest. This guy was found on the front lawn of a Boston cop, but a Boston cop whose brother was a Canton cop. So it was very incestuous, right? So it was the state police who did the majority of the investigative work. And yeah, they took some serious hits. It was not done, I think, at the level that people in Massachusetts would have wanted. And I was actually impressed with the fact that the state police, everyone sort of issues a statement if they don't want to go on camera after a big event like this. And the state police came out and said, yeah, we are looking at our investigative techniques. We are looking at, how we are supposed to respond and look at these cases. And I thought that was at least taking the high road, because others have been, sort of given an opposite reaction.
Well, and this thing wasn't a secret. Everybody saw the investigative techniques around the world. So they had to make some sort of comment and say, hey, maybe we screwed this up a little bit. We're going to look into this because they look bad. Yeah. And if you didn't follow this super close, they look even worse, right? When you start hearing about cover-up and you don't know all the details behind it. And then the fuzzy circumstances of exactly how he died. And you mentioned the cop's brother, all these different jurisdictions. What was it like in the trial? Was the courtroom divided in half? Like you got the pink wearing Karen Reed supporters on one side and maybe some uniformed officers on the other side? Was there a clear line there as far as who was supporting who?
Yeah. So because of the way the original courtroom was the main courtroom. It was big. It could fit everybody. But the defense had an issue because the jury box was positioned in a way where you would not necessarily see all the witnesses' facial reaction. It was kind of to the side. So the defense said, no, we don't want this courtroom. We want another courtroom. So they moved to a smaller courtroom. So it was a tiny courtroom. So you had Karen Reed's family sort of on the right side. They would be there every single day, the same faces, and a few new people would come in. And then John O'Keefe's family immediately across from them. And then they could only fit 10 reporters. You'd have 10 reporters, and then you'd have the court staff. So you didn't have any random spectators, which was, most trials, there's always space, right? Mm-hmm. There was not space in this case, and it was just this tiny courtroom with the same people who you saw the same faces every day.
Was she a bona fide celebrity by the end of this? Because first trial, nobody really knows who she is, except for the media coverage and all the other stuff that was going on, and then you get to know her. But you got to have that charisma. You got to have that it factor if you're a real celebrity, if you really have the ability to pull people in. But if you have people around the world wearing pink and supporting you and freaking out if they see her, probably, you're a celebrity. Is that how she's looked at right now? That she goes from this unknown and now she's got this draw, this appeal where she's a totally different person.
Well, and she raised $1 million, so it tells you something right there too.
Well, she's good at business, good little entrepreneur. Yeah. But do you look at her? Did she have that feel of someone that has a presence?
Yeah, I remember when I did my interview with her, it was over 2 days, and the first day we met her at a Boston hotel. And I remember riding down the elevator with her, and the woman, some random woman, was in the elevator with us. And I just remember her looking over, and visually, I could see her saying her head, "That's Karen Reed." Mm-hmm. So yeah, absolutely. She, I was out to dinner this weekend, and people just came up and talked to me about the case. She is transcended into pop culture.
I do have a question about the Karen Reed, Jennifer McCabe, and Matthew McCabe. These are all people that were drinking all night, and the party ends up there at Brian Elber's house.
Yeah, Brian Elber. Yep.
And so, obviously, everybody's intoxicated because it's well after 2 a.m. Correct?
Yes, it gets to be that late. Yeah, they show up a little after midnight. They allege the collision happened at around 12:30. So yeah, it's pretty late, and people are drinking. They were at bars before.
Right. So the defense is going to definitely use all that, like your alcohol level is up. Are you sure it was 2 or these times? So that's got to be a big part of the argument. Is Karen Reed? She didn't go to the house. She said she was feeling sick. Were these her good friends before, or were they more John O'Keefe's really good friends because of they were mostly cops?
Yeah, so I think neither were, I would say, well, actually, no, that some of the people were close to John and had known him for a long time. But no, Karen was, and that was part of the defense, the play by the defense. Karen Reed was the outsider. You know, she wasn't from this town of Canton. All these people knew each other. All these people went to high school with each other, and friends on the police force or family members. And that Karen was the one, the defense alleged was, okay, this happens, we're going to pin it on Karen.
Yeah. I want to talk about your one-on-one interview that you had with her. You said it lasted over the span of 2 days. Not everybody gets that opportunity. If you're a reporter and you're covering this trial, you did. Were there questions that were off limit? Did she try to micromanage this interview? And really, what was your takeaway after spending that much time with her one-on-one?
Yeah, no, the first day, so Alan Jackson, her attorney, ended up flying in that evening, but we met her around 2 p.m. Her attorney wasn't even with her for like 50% of the interview. Wow. We did. And no, there were no questions that were off limits. I asked her about some of the stuff that the prosecution has used to try to convict her. And I think that she's just very good at answering the questions, and she's very good at getting her case and getting her point across. But yeah, I thought that was wild that we would get this access without a minder. Usually, when I've interviewed other people who are jammed up for something, they'll have their minder there next to them, either a PR person or a lawyer saying, no, don't answer that. And there was none of that.
Kato, was there a gag order for you? Like, was nobody involved in the trial allowed to say anything for the whole span?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I was even sequestered to watch. I couldn't watch anything. Huh. So, and I respected it. But the Karen Reed doing all this is, she is probably his attitude. I have nothing to hide. And did you do both sides? You did interviews with Hank Brennan also, and the families. You did an interview with every side, correct?
No, we certainly tried. We requested an interview with Hank Brennan while we were talking to Karen, or even beforehand, saying, we are going to speak with her. We'd like to give you an opportunity. It was declined,
hard to believe.
Which is frustrating for us, because it's like, okay, here's your opportunity. The family, I think, because of my interview with Karen Reed, the family, I think, did not like the fact. I think they thought that we were promoting her. And so I don't think they were thrilled with that, or thrilled with our station because we did that interview. But I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, why would they be mad at you? It's Karen. She agreed to do it. And you said it kind of helped her in the long run anyway, but that's lame, I think, for the family to blame the TV station. You're going to try to get this story every single day if you can.
That was part of their statement that they released about the verdict. They said that, they blamed a number of people, and one of the people they blamed were, certain members of the media. They didn't name anyone by name, but they feel that Karen Reed was sort of, given this hero-like status, and that, they were lost in all this. The thing is, Karen would speak. I remember one of the the O'Keefe family members were walking out of court one day, and someone who I don't believe is maybe like more of a distant relative, I hadn't seen in the courtroom a lot, but the woman made some comments to us about, oh, you're waiting for your queen or something like that. Being sarcastic about that. And all the reporters turned around and said, would you like to talk to us? No, I'm not going to talk to you. And it's like, well, you can't have it both ways. Like, we're trying to do our job. And it's like, we would love to talk to you. I had messaged John O'Keefe's brother multiple times and asked him to do an interview with me. And it just never came to fruition.
Here's my theory on that. Cops usually have a built-in advantage in a trial like this, right? If there was a cop victim, they have access to, the prosecution, evidence, other things that, someone on trial wanted. The other thing is, I bet they wouldn't have been very good. Maybe they didn't have the personality. Maybe deep down they thought they would not perform at the level that she did that clearly helped her, and they'd come off even worse. Or else they were just stupid because they should have done it.
Yeah, no, they have since talked. 2020 had several. They had that trooper Michael Proctor on the other night. They had sort of the other people who were inside the house who believe Karen is guilty. That was, I think, their first my recollection, that is their first big interview that they did, and it was interesting to finally hear from them.
Right. So I was going to ask with the with being on 2020 Proctor, and you probably had high ratings, sweeps week, run this stuff, and all the other networks besides Fox 25. But did you see that your life changed too, and you became, you're on every day, you're part of the trial, you're in the trial first and second, and you can see how you're recognizable, and maybe you're getting the extra ketchup packets at McDonald's or something because you're the celebrity and you got all this going on. But did you see the change happen to you?
Yeah, I mean, I covered the Aaron Hernandez trials, both of them, gavel to gavel. So I've covered other big trials, but yeah, you're right. I think for you almost, because we broke some of the bigger stories in this case, we didn't break all of them. There was a blogger who also, sort of led the Free Karen Reed movement, but because you almost became a character, I felt like, I almost became sort of a character in this whole thing. One day I wore a pink shirt. It was the first trial, and I didn't give it much thought, but that got turned into, hey, this guy's wearing pink to support Karen Reed. And yeah, I probably shouldn't have wore pink that day, but I probably wore blue the other 4 days.
Right.
And, and that made me this character, and it's the kind of type of attention you don't want, but it's, I've been doing this long enough where I can take the, if people want to, give me a hard time, that's fine. But yeah, no, it's been a wild ride. It's been absolutely my life. Talking with as many people. For me, I think the part of just staying on top of this story is just, I was on the phone all the time to whoever would, talking with whoever would speak with me and would give me information. And that sometimes led to some really good stuff. And I guess I had sources on both sides who were feeding me information, and it led to some big stories in this case.
Yeah, and Kato, the extra ketchup packets are nice if you get them. But there's a lot of pressure if you're covering a trial like this, like Ted did. Yeah. It takes over your life. You never want to miss anything because everybody's competing for those little nuggets of information. There's pressure. I bet you went to bed so many nights thinking, I got to get something. I got to find something. Who can I call right here? And then your bosses start expecting it. So I hope they're very appreciative of what you did getting the one-on-one with Karen. Now they're probably saying, get another one. But it is. And it's almost like you're all characters in this show that everybody's tuning in at 3:00 in the afternoon to find the latest. And that's similar maybe on a lower scale than when Kato with OJ, but you can totally relate to that.
Oh, completely. I get it. That's why you see the change happen because the more you're seen on TV and more you're seen, just you become, the celebrity.
Ted, I cannot believe. Now, I didn't follow this like a maniac, right? I wasn't wearing pink and, watching the highlights every single day. But when I sit back and just try to analyze this, I cannot believe that they thought this could be murder 2 or whatever the charges were, something else, right? Not that. And for that to happen, you need a weapon, you need a motive, you need to see maybe exactly what happened to cause the homicide. So is that kind of how you were thinking too? They're just reaching here.
Yeah, I mean, that was the one thing that I think people could generally agree on, that they thought that murder 2 was probably too high of a charge. And what happens, you guys, if they had come at the outset of this and said, hey, we're going to do, sort of a lesser charge and we're going to give you probation or something? I think I wouldn't be surprised if a deal would have been done. And now, this is the most expensive DUI conviction in the history of Massachusetts.
Right, because that's all they got at the end was the DUI. That's it.
Yeah, I think the trying to make her appear to be a cold-hearted killer was the absolute wrong thing to do.
Right. I mean, I think there could have been justice if they had decided to go for manslaughter or something like that. And like you said, maybe there would have been a plea. Who knows? But they fought and she won, and that's how it works. Right. You get your day in court, and she came out on top. What's next for her, do you think? Because you get a little taste of the limelight like she has, and you have fans and supporters really all over the world because she does. Where do you think she goes from here? Is she going to go back to being anonymous, or is she going to be a consultant on court TV or something like that? What do you think? Have you talked to her about it?
Her mom told me a couple days ago that Karen had said to her a few weeks before that, hey, Mom, I want to go back to work. I'm thinking that maybe I want to go back to work. I don't see that. I think the next time you hear from Karen Read will be on her terms. I would imagine that you talked about a book, or I would imagine that she didn't, when she came out, right, she's always usually answering questions and speaking for a fairly long time. After her acquittal, she was very brief. She spoke very briefly. And I think that was calculated, that this woman has a ton to say and people are going to line up to listen, but they're just not going to say it to anybody. It's going to be, in a way that she chooses, and it will probably be attached to something big.
Yeah, it's the showbiz line. It's the always leave them wanting more.
Well, and she's got a market right now, and she's gonna have multiple offers. They're gonna be 7 or 8 figures. She's not gonna have to work again, because this you can't turn something into this unless it's organic. And this one had all the ingredients to have a trial that captivates the nation. She was attractive, right? You have the Boston police. So, there's a clear line where people can divide it and say, who am I with right now? And then she had all these followers, did you see it? Was that pink army out there regularly?
Oh yeah. When that verdict came down, you could hear it echo inside the courtroom. I mean, it just, as that verdict was coming out, and keep in mind, they were on a little bit of a delay because they were watching a stream. So, 20 seconds after that first not guilty, just the crowd outside erupted, and it, just reverberated across the courtroom. And yeah, some people, we were still doing live shots pretty late, and some people were still out there 3 hours after she left, just soaking it in. I think they wanted to be a part of something. And that was something that a lot of them invested a lot of emotion into.
Hey, Ted, anything that we haven't covered yet, anything that you want to share, maybe a crazy story, or maybe the moment that you felt things shift and start going in favor of the defense, where it was a runaway freight train downhill? Anything else that you want to just, from your experience being in I want to make sure that our viewers tap into all of this.
I mean, I thought we were going probably in the way of a mistrial, right? Because last time, because there wasn't an immediate verdict. It took a few days for them to reach this sort of conclusion. And all it takes is somebody dug in on one side. One person on the she's guilty side to create a mistrial. And I was actually surprised when, they said, so it was really weird. The way the verdict happened was we all came back into court, and the judge said, just so you know, the jury knocked on the door, told the court officer they had a verdict. And then as the court officer was walking away, they were like, no, we don't. We're wrong. We don't have a verdict. And they even gave him the verdict slip. So the judge said that. So the judge is like, we have no verdict. So we're like, oh, this is already, and it's stressful. I mean, if you've ever waited, you guys both know what it's like to wait for a verdict. If you ever wait for a verdict, it is stressful. And then 15 minutes later is when, we start hearing the rustling again. And then you hear, we have a verdict. And I was double checking with the court security. I'm like, are you sure? Because I don't want to put this out there and have it, be wrong. And then we got the verdict. So just that whole, her walking out, I mean, in terms of made for Hollywood, I don't know if you guys seen the video of her walking out of the courthouse and just 500 people or more erupting, I've never seen that. I've never seen in a trial or anything having to do with the court system where there was that type of reaction.
Needed them all to defeat this. We thank everybody for their support from the heart.
Yeah, and chances are you never will again. That's what makes this thing so special and unique. You survived it. You were there. We're going to drop in some clips if we can, if we get your permission or your station's, permission to show some of your live shots, because you did great work, Ted. Congratulations. It was awesome. I always give our guests, especially someone that's covered so many trials like you and the big showcase ones, including Aaron Rodriguez or Aaron Hernandez.
By the way, I was going to say that if Ted likes us, come back on our show. I want to talk about that one too.
Yeah, that could be another episode.
Honestly, that is, and you.
That was so much more clear cut, Yeah.
Like you had a real villain there. That's for sure.
Well, so maybe you'll do us be gracious and do our show on that one too. But
hey, Ted, any questions for Kato? Pretend you're covering this trial 30 years ago. Anything you've ever wanted to ask Kato Kaelin with that journalistic reporter mind of yours?
Yeah, I guess when you look, did you have from what you knew of this trial, did you have a feeling which way this would go?
Yes, I did. I thought that Karen Reed was going to get off, vindicated for she's not going to be guilty. But I watched the Netflix. I watched quite a few interviews. I saw your interviews, and I researched from before even that I didn't know we were having you as a guest. And I thought, man, I never would have done a Netflix show because I think people are going to make a statement that she's looking for the limelight. I think it's the worst thing she could have done. So I was completely wrong with that because it worked in her favor. But then again, was the jurors sequestered?
No, they weren't. They weren't sequestered.
They were at Red Sox games, hanging out.
They probably they obviously watched. I bet you they watched it.
Of course they did, right? Side, you can't avoid it now. 30 years ago, you could.
Yeah.
But now with social, you're getting everything on your phone, whether you want it or not. So, hey, this was great, Ted, and I appreciate you spending the time with us. Enjoy a little break now. I hope you get one from this trial, and maybe there'll be a civil trial that you'll have to go cover next on this.
There is a civil trial.
Yep.
So that's next. I don't think it will get the publicity this one has gotten, but I certainly think it will be. You'll be hearing about it.
All right. Yep. Well, say hi to my friends over there, Boston 25, the Fox affiliate in Boston, Butch Stearns, Kevin, your weather guy. I've known him for 30 years now too, almost. So keep up the good work. Thanks again, Ted. Really appreciate it.
Guys.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Keep it on.
Yeah, he will. And Kato, I'll say this. I didn't follow this that closely because I didn't want to until it was over. Right. Because so many different things can happen, and we have our other cases that we've been working on. But now we're going to do a few more episodes on this because it is one of those cases that just captured everybody's attention.
I told you a while ago.
You did.
I said we should do something on Karen Reed.
Yeah, and I didn't want to do it until I was fully ready, and it makes sense now that we have a resolution in that case, and Ted was awesome today, but we will have more. I got a surprise for you.
What?
I got a surprise for everybody watching. Stick around. We're going to take one quick break. Now, this is the show for true crime, pop culture, scandal, bar none. Mm-hmm. We're bringing you some scandal next. It's juicy. We're back right after this break. All right, we have covered all the big true crime cases, taking you on tours of the crime scenes here in Los Angeles. How about we go back to our roots and bring in a little Hollywood scandal today? I told you I had a surprise for you after the break, and here it is. Kato, I'd like to introduce you to Stephanie Forbes. Stephanie, say hello to Kato.
Howdy.
Big fan of Stephanie. Stephanie, why do I feel like I know her?
Oh, guys. Okay, so my son Dash is here, Zeus is here, Kato's here. Anybody that knows me knows one thing about me. I'm not a music expert, but I love music, right? But there's 3 acts I can't stand. The Beach Boys, the Imagine Dragons, and Adele. When I hear their music, I turn it off, okay, as fast as I can. And no offense, I know a lot of people love the Beach Boys, and I respect the Beach Boys culturally, what they did. Yeah. Brian Wilson, the whole crew, obviously they're icons. I still like the music, but Adele, that's just another level for me, and that's why Stephanie is here. Kato, I haven't even told you about this, but there was an incident back in 2023, and our friend Stephanie here is a influencer or a brand ambassador for a really high-end liquor company. Would that be accurate?
Well, I was.
She was
Okay,
something,
perfect.
something bad
You're good. Now
happened.
make sure you're talking right into this mic. We don't want to miss a single
Yes.
word. Okay, Stephanie, first of all, thanks for coming by, and it's great to see you.
Absolutely.
And we're going to help promote Stephanie because she's a singer I will listen to. I guarantee you that. So we're going to tell you how you can follow her as she makes her first album right now in Vegas and her social media handles. But let's get to the juicy part. You are representing a brand around the holidays. It was in December of 2023. And the event, Kato, took place in West Hollywood at the Classic Cat. Is that the name of it?
Yes, Classic Cat,
Okay.
West Hollywood.
And it was a birthday party for Rich Paul. Okay, who's associated with LeBron James, obviously, forever, and he's engaged to Adele. So you had LeBron and Savannah there, you had Kevin Hart there, a number of celebrities. It was a great night. And Stephanie had already had a gig or something going on that day, but then you were asked to go and represent that brand there, and it went good for a while. Then what happened?
Let's just say I got there early, did some cocktail setup, and was super excited for the night. And we got off to a rough start because our friend Adele showed up maybe 9 o'clock. And I'm a huge fan, right? I'm a singer. I go up to her and I'm like, man, I love your dress. It was an 80s, 90s theme. So
You literally went up to her and gave her a compliment.
Gave her a compliment. And
Did you
she
tell her she
turns and looks at me and she goes, oh, is your jacket from Michael Kors?
Is that what she said to you? That was her reply? Oh, it was on at that point.
It was a snipe from the beginning of the night. She didn't like me.
Yeah.
So
Is she one of those?
So is that a negative when someone says it's a jacket from Michael Kors?
It's not a personal interaction. I mean, I'm not here for you to evaluate my outfit,
Yeah.
Adele.
So you could, and the way she said it was sort of a negative.
Yeah, it was not a compliment.
So obviously, I think Adele's thinking jealousy. She sees Stephanie and probably.
We're gonna get to that.
Oh, really?
We're gonna get
See,
to
I'm
that.
on the right track.
You're on the right track. But you know what? How dare you, Adele? You know, you're from another country. Okay, you come and you respect beautiful women like Stephanie here. You don't ask about the label or anything like that. Hey, nice to meet you. Hi, thanks for coming tonight. That would have been the more appropriate response. So anyway, continue.
So I go on. Maybe 2-3 hours later, the DJ's out there. I think it was DJ Meek Mill. And celebs are showing up. And look, it doesn't take a lot for me. I'm out there on the dance floor having a great time as soon as he starts spinning. So I'm just having fun. They're like, you're not doing a toast tonight. You're not giving any speech. So I'm just enjoying the party. I'm enjoying the vibe.
And as a brand ambassador, that's part of your role sometimes is to represent the brand with a speech, a toast, something like that.
Totally. Yes.
Did you have any toast that night, just yourself? So I just want to know.
for myself.
Oh, so were you a little? So you? I mean, I'm not saying you're blitz, but were you?
I was toasty.
Okay, all right. I want to see where the story goes.
And you know what's interesting is I actually saw my boss's boss there, and she never said a word to me about my behavior or my outfit or anything. I was having a great time dancing. I was not grinding on anybody.
Right,
I was not
right.
spilling my drink on anybody.
Well, it was early.
I was having a great time. I was singing and dancing and taking up
Doing
all
your job,
the energetic
and
space.
everybody loves that, seeing that.
Now, stay in the microphone, singer. Okay. We want to hear all this. Yeah, Kato, if you haven't noticed, Stephanie has what you would call big energy, right? Is that safe to say?
Yes.
And you have a couple toasts for yourself, you know, of a shot glass variety.
Oh, yeah.
And there's great music and there's an energy. You have all those celebrities there. It's a fun night.
She walked in there, I knew immediately she was at a .08.
It was like my kryptonite that night.
Okay, so you're there then to have fun.
Yes.
Right? So then when did things go haywire?
So at a certain point in the evening, I'm dancing in the middle of the dance floor. LeBron James is over here to my left. Rich Paul's over here, probably 10 feet away. And I remember I'm sitting here dancing, having a great time, and I get a little tap on the shoulder. And so security comes up to me and they're like, you need to calm down. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm dancing. I'm having fun. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not talking shit to anybody.
On a scale of 1 to 10, big energy, Stephanie at 10. 1, you just woke up with a hangover. Okay. Where were we? Were we past 10?
We might have been 10 plus.
Okay.
10 plus, you know, because it doesn't take a lot for me.
Now, in a situation like that, if the wives weren't there, I bet LeBron, Rich Paul, all of them would have loved that, right? But how did they respond to your dancing?
Let's just say I think I was receiving some looks. I might have been receiving some attention.
Okay.
At one point, Kevin Hart looked at me, and I think he was looking me up and down like, oh, this just crazy. So I think it was kind of like, she may not last long.
Okay,
here.
so now, did you stay the whole night? Get to the fireworks
So
now.
here we go. I get the tap on the shoulder. They're like, you need to calm down. So I go over to the bar and I'm going over to talk to some of the PR girls over there. And I run into my boss's boss. She's there. I say hi, hello, big hugs. And I say hi and I go back to the dance floor. This is maybe 10 minutes later. And there I am. I'm turning it up. At this point, there's no going back. So I'm just having fun dancing. And then I get this. Excuse me. And they're like, you need to come with us. And I was like,
That's
wait, I need to
security?
get, yeah, this is security grabbing me, shouldering me out. And so next thing I know, I can't turn around. I can't go back. I can't say goodbye to anybody. I just get walked out of the club.
Are you screaming at that point? Are you
No, I
pitching a
think
fit?
I might have said one thing as I'm turning back. I mean, it happened so fast.
Getting
I went
kicked
from
out.
dancing, having a blast to I'm getting walked out.
Okay.
I get outside of the club. 30 seconds later, one of the PR girls comes out and she's like, Steph, oh my gosh. I was like, what happened? I don't understand. She's like, well, Adele complained you were dancing too close to Rich Paul. I was like, are you serious? I was like, this is ridiculous. I am a huge fan. Let me go work this out. I'll apologize, whatever. So she goes back in, comes back out 2 minutes later. Absolutely not. It won't let me back into the club. I wait out there 30, 45 minutes trying to go back in.
And what time was this?
This was like at 1 a.m.
So you were dancing for, let's say, 3 hours, two
Yeah,
and a half
3
hours,
hours.
having a great time.
But
Yeah.
dancing by yourself on the dance floor.
I
or
literally never danced with anybody. There were people like where you are right now.
Right.
You know, like nobody was in my personal space. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's all right. I was going to get security to walk you out of here.
Okay, so you get kicked out,
Yes.
and then what happened? Was that the end of the story?
So then I text the club owner and I'm like, look, I'm so sorry. I was having a great time tonight. I have big energy. People either love it or they hate it. I left. My friend, PR girl, was like, hey, don't worry. You know, nobody saw anything, whatever. You got walked out. So couple days go by. I receive a scathing email, bullet points about my behavior that night, including my dancing, my drunkenness, my behavior, screaming Adele's name upon getting kicked out, and that they had to call an Uber for me 10 minutes later, which was a lie because I called my own Uber 45 minutes later. And complaints about my outfit and demanding an apology from the company that I worked for. I mean, completely.
That you would have to
over the
do an
top.
apology to Rich Paul and Adele, essentially?
Essentially,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, they're not going to accept it if you.
Yeah. And the biggest part was it resulted in a financial loss because Rich Paul was paid to do a promotion and a picture with this whiskey that night, and he never did it. So
they were out a fair amount of money,
Yeah.
according to them.
Yes.
Right, which is weird, Kato, because they let her stay for another 3 hours, right? They knew that you were having a good time. If she was so bothered by it, she could have said goodbye sooner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
yeah.
was there one moment, though, that triggered her, do you think? Did you say anything
know.
like Adele sucks or anything like that?
I was smiling and singing and having probably a better time than everybody else at the party.
Okay.
So
I think Stephanie's intimidating. I think she's intimidating to someone like an Adele, even though Adele's a superstar. I just think, obviously, something happened where someone said, "Who's that girl? She's attractive," and maybe he did, like, "Oh, she's an attractive girl."
Well, you know what else
I
I,
don't
think
know if
happened
that's
too?
said, but you could
I
see
bet
that.
LeBron and Rich Paul were loving you, and they got reamed out by Adele and his wife and LeBron's wife. I bet they were the ones that were most upset. Probably, right? Because maybe they caught their men like eyeing you up and down.
there's more to it.
Okay.
So get this. The club owner calls me the next day. He's like, Steph, apologizing profusely. He was like, you know what? He was like, they told me Savannah, LeBron's wife, and Adele, they would not stop complaining about you. He's like, I love your energy. If it had been my party, you would have stayed, would have loved to have had you. But Savannah and Adele would not stop complaining about you.
I mean, come on. She ruined Rich Paul's birthday, making it about herself, in my opinion.
Yeah,
You're not supposed to do that,
exactly.
Adele. I mean, keep in mind, Adele is the person that had the residency in Vegas where people flew in, they were looking forward to this, her first show of what, maybe a 3-month residency, and she bails the day of the first concert. That's low life behavior, if you ask me.
Her residency in Vegas?
She canceled that night.
Do you know why, don't you?
Why?
She lives in Vegas.
I did.
Boom, now it
A
all
lot of
makes
Vegas
sense.
peeps are not happy
That
with
all
her, by the
makes
way.
sense. Okay, so then your company's ticked off at you. Adele hates you. Savannah James isn't pleased, but the club was okay, right? They were cool.
Oh, no, they were like, come back in a week and we'll talk
yeah.
through the cocktail list and all of the things that we're going to do together.
Okay, so after that, were you still working for that company?
About 2 days later, I had to quit
Okay.
because there was so much stink around the financial loss of it, which, come on. Little old me, and you can't fulfill your contractual obligations, or what does that say about the power dynamic between Adele and Rich, or how Rich handles his business?
Yeah.
Come on.
That doesn't affect him not taking a picture with the brand. That makes no sense.
I mean, that was
Did
the
he-
deal.
did he-
that was
did
the
he get
contractual
paid for
obligation.
sure? Did he get
Yes,
paid?
he got
I
paid.
think, well,
That's
then
my
that company
understanding.
has, I think, a suit, some kind of lawsuit.
To put it all on you is
have
lame.
no effect
Yeah.
on him doing what he had to do.
I was the fall girl.
So
I would fight that.
Yeah. So essentially, you were forced to resign.
Yes.
Okay.
If I hadn't resigned, I would have been fired.
Right. Okay.
Because I had been, drinking at the job, with whatever you want to say.
Maybe
but
it's a job though, is to have a cocktail.
We could do a whole episode.
that brand could use a little fun factor, anyways.
Yeah, they
Let's
could,
just
right?
be honest.
Right? They're not exactly known for fun, except for that time that you were working for them. This is Adele's behavior. She's one of those. Don't make eye contact with the celebrity. You're just a human. This is Adele. Who gives a crap?
Don't look at me in the eye.
The celebrity says you can't make eye contact with me. That is so out these days. All right.
Yeah.
Not everybody's mesmerized by you, Adele. Okay. Me at the top of the list. I just don't care for her. This just backs up. That's a snapshot, I think, of how she treats people in general.
What's it called? Certain celebrities have a list of demands of what you have to have, like
The writer.
The writer.
The writer.
Yeah.
the writer
Yeah,
of what
yeah.
that goes in, because J-Lo had a writer that was amazing.
yeah.
The only person that had a writer that wasn't bad was Gandhi. He just said chilled urine. That's all. Chilled urine and a 420 thread count sheet. That was it. I was at that party.
Okay.
He was so
420.
easy.
Were you dancing with him?
He was so
Did you
good.
get
no
thrown
food,
out?
by the way. We had no food. It was just a party. We fasted.
You know what? I would love to get my hands on Adele's rider, because you have to come up with custom color M&Ms in the size of a bowling ball for her, probably.
I think that actually was part of the
Yeah.
thing. I'm not mistaken.
Anyway, okay.
The green ones had to be something had to be thrown. I'm not joking. It
No,
was like
we could
the
do an
rider.
episode on this type of celebrity behavior, because it's out there. Ellen DeGeneres is famous for this, but there's a ton of stuff out there about
I did the
Adele.
Ellen show, and she was very nice to me.
No,
I know
I've
she
heard
takes a beating,
multiple
but
stories.
I know there's a bunch of stories from other people. I met her way before she had her show through comedy, and then did the show. But then again, there's people that got some horrible stories about everybody. Actually, any celebrity has a story.
Okay, I'm going to give you 10, 15 seconds just to riff on Adele if you want to. Are you still holding bad blood towards her? Are you ticked? Or did she help you, ultimately, because you left and now you're doing something bigger and better?
Blessing in disguise. Now I've started working on an album. I just released my first Spotify single a month ago. It's a cover, Wolf Alice song called How Can I Make It Okay? So honestly, it just fast forwarded my journey. So I moved
Great.
to LA and I wanted to pursue music. So.
How do people find you then?
So Steffi Forbes.
Besides bars. What's your last name's Happy Hour?
Exactly. Well, so it's Steffi Forbes, Stefi, Forbes all together. That's Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube. You can find me there, and I'll be releasing some more music soon. So
Best of luck.
Thanks, Adele.
You know I love you. And I think you're going to be a big star. I really am. And you know what?
Can't wait.
Hey, look, you deal with celebrities. This is part of it. I'm just making this personal because I don't like Adele.
You know what's funny? I sang one of her songs at a talent show. So I was always,
Is she still
always
married
a
to
fan.
this guy?
Well, they're still together. I don't think they're officially married yet.
And the other thing is that TMZ story, apparently they didn't look too happy leaving the party.
Yeah. We'll
and
put
you
up
know
the
why?
TMZ
'Cause
story.
moi.
Yep, you ruined it for him. You ruined his 42nd birthday.
When Stephanie, when we wrap the show, can I ask a favor? Our show is 1 Degree of Scandalous.
Yes.
Can you sing 15-second riff and send us out of our show.
Well, here, I have another idea too. I want to videotape you on my phone, kind of how you were dancing that night. If you could recreate it. And then me and Kato will post it on our social media, and we'll also put it on our community page for YouTube.
Why do you think I wore my heels? I was ready.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to get your permission first before I just did that.
And you can sing while you're dancing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, this is great. This is great.
Fantastic.
What kind of singer are you for this new album? What can people expect?
I would say it's a mixture of pop, EDM, some trance, and just developing my own style.
Okay.
You know,
Good
I
for
don't want to
you.
be pigeonholed.
Well, hopefully Kato and I can help launch it for you. Okay.
Wait.
And we'll put the links all in this episode so you can support Stephanie and follow her, and we'll give updates on how her career is doing.
And eat more
Thank
iron.
you.
Your nails are yellow.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
No,
Anything else?
thank you guys. This was super fun. I can't wait to be back with more.
Stephanie.
All right. Okay. You can go in the green room and get ready to dance because I'm gonna tape that in just a second. Dash was here again. Dash, you want to pop over here? You learn anything today? By the way, Dash, this settles the argument because LeBron is partly to blame. Michael Jordan is the GOAT, always has been the GOAT, always will be the GOAT.
One honey.
Am I right?
Yes, you are right about the Michael Jordan, but I will say LeBron and what he has done for his career, even though his wife might not be the best, I still believe in my generation, I see him as the GOAT, and I'm sorry about that.
Well, Dash is working as my assistant. He might be. You're getting a salary reduction after that comment.
Well, it's not like I'm getting much salary at all.
Now he's talking to the boss. I'm going to use your email you got from your company as a template, and I'm going to take you down. By the way, Dash has been around so many celebrities in his life, just hanging out with the stuff that we do. Celebrities are always cool to Dash. Who is any favorites?
Favorite, Tom Brady. I mean, that guy, he is the GOAT, and the way he treated me was the greatest of all time. He was so respectful. I was the first person to take a picture with him after meeting like 100 people, and he loved me. He even complimented me on my suit that day, which I thought was
What a baller.
I know that was pretty cool.
I mean, Adele, you could get some lessons from Tom Brady. Let me just say that he knows how to conduct himself. So yeah, Dash, good job. Now get back to work. I've got a whole list of things for you to do for me. Good job, man.
Always good. Dash cam.
Dash cam. All right, Dash. Good job.
Bravo.
Yeah, Brady, he was so cool that day. He loved me, Dash, and Brady's manager, and Brady rode together in this. So it was just us hanging, and he couldn't have been cooler. And I work with Tom Brady. He's the best. He is the best.
So who is Tom Brady? I don't even know who you guys are talking about.
Oh, he's the guy I was trying to hook up with Karen Reed earlier in the show.
I know.
Why did that
Full
land
circle.
like a... Did you hear my line?
I
go, maybe
did.
Brady... Ted didn't want to hear that. I know that. Anyway, yeah. Okay, this was awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right. Kato, I'm
back.
glad you got to see Stephanie again. All right, this was a lot of fun. The Karen Reed trial and then a little bit of Hollywood scandal. This was awesome.
I like ending it like that.
All right, so make sure you listen to the audio podcast. We'll put the links in for Stephanie. Make sure you follow Kato and I on social media, especially because Kato's heading out to the Midwest, so there's always going to be adventures attached with that. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we will see you very, very soon.